I want to thank our first guest speaker, Ms. Sharon Hill. Thank you, Sharon, for being with us. And Sharon has worked with the homeless for many, many years. She first worked with the Chatham-Savannah Authority for the homeless. And for the last 13 years, she has worked with the Savannah-Chatham County Public School System, helping really to be an advocate for the homeless children within our school system. I guess, is that a good way to put it, Sharon? Yes, so again, thank you for being here and leading us off. Of course, we're doing a few of these, and we know September is kind of back to school month, right? And so I'm sure that looks really different at this time.
It looks very different, yes.
Yes. Okay, so I guess you want to just get us started with maybe with whatever you'd like to say, but maybe in terms of how things are going as school has started.
Right now, usually this time of the year, we've probably identified maybe over 200 students. We're probably at maybe 125 right now. And I think that's because we're virtual, and a lot of parents are uncertain of if they're eligible for McKinney-Vento services or what the school district can still provide for the students, even during a pandemic. So they're really leery to sort of identify. So in the next couple of weeks, we'll be going out, doing a lot of outreach, a lot of in agencies or at community agencies where we know a lot of homeless families typically receive services, so that they are aware that they're still eligible for those services during the school year, even during virtual learning.
So how are you going out to identify the students? And I know a little bit about how they were identified in the classroom, but maybe you can even share with us something about that.
Well, typically a lot of our students are self-identified. I mean, that's really, they'll identify because they're in need of transportation. One of the laws, one of the components of the McKinney-Vento law says that families are able to remain in one school if they're still homeless for the entire school year. So even though the family may bounce around from motel to motel or shelter to shelter, they're still eligible to remain at that one school. Where during a virtual school year, you're still eligible to remain because you're not necessarily going into a building. So you don't need transportation. And that's one of our key identifiers, is when students reach out to our transportation department or to some of our teachers and say, hey, I'm having trouble getting to school. And we do a little bit of research. Then we figure out that the student really is a homeless student, and we go from there.
So since they don't have a home, what type of places are set up for them to be able to do their work?
Well, the shelters have been really gracious, as you know. They have sort of waived the typical, you need to be out during the day, you know, during research. Typically when kids are in school, they are allowing those students to remain in those shelters, to have access to that Wi-Fi so that they're able to participate in their classes. Now, our students that are in motels may have a little bit more difficulty, because those are typically families who are working to pay for the motels during the day. So the students may be there by themselves. We don't know. We honestly don't know where they are or what they're doing, which is why once we hire another staff member, we'll be able to go out and do outreach to those motels to identify those children and offer them any support that we can.
Okay, so you're hiring another staff, and you're really basically going to have to just look for these students.
Exactly, yes.
I guess I would assume the schools via rosters know who's present and who's absent, right? I mean, so you have some sort of idea?
Well, the tricky part of McKinney-Vento is you're eligible for the services for one school year. So at the end of the school year, basically all of the students have to re-identify every school year. Well, when school closed in March, we had a difficult time reaching parents. The phone numbers may not have been working, or they may not have been valid numbers. So they kind of somewhat disappeared and went under the radar. So now we've got to go back out and find those families who are in those living situations again, to make sure that they're receiving the services and supports that they need.
Okay, so and you're referring to I'm looking for the name of it here, the McKinney-Vento Act, right, which protects the rights of the homeless students, right?
That is correct. And I did prepare a brief PowerPoint just to kind of give you a little bit of background. I'm a visual student, so I have to actually see it in order to be able to articulate it very well. Okay, perfect. So what I'll do is, again, just give you kind of a brief overview. You can stop me at any time and ask any questions, or if you want to wait until the end to ask questions, that is perfectly fine. Whatever makes you all comfortable is what we're going on with. So I'll just give you a brief overview of the McKinney-Vento definition of homeless, the number of students by grade and school year that we've identified, and then some of the challenges of working with homeless students during COVID-19. So most of you, especially homeless service providers, use the HUD definition of homeless.
Hey, excuse me.
Yeah.
I hate to interrupt, but I can't see the PowerPoint anymore. I'm seeing a desktop with seagulls or birds.
Oh, okay, sorry.
And a gallery number.
There we
Okay,
go.
I see
Can you
it
see
now.
it now?
Yes. Okay.
Okay. So
I'm a rookie at this, so.
It's okay. We're all. Oh, I hear music. Okay, there we go. Okay, we'll get it together. We'll definitely get it together. So when the school looks at the definition of homeless, it is definitely different from the definition that homeless service providers use. One of the things that we look at when we're identifying students is if their living arrangement is fixed, regular, adequate. So basically, we want to know if the student can go to the same place every night to sleep and have safe and sufficient space. So when we look at that definition, the living arrangements that we do look at are, and this is a definition that HUD does not recognize, is those students that are living in what we call doubled up living situations. Those are students who typically have been evicted or has a home foreclosure, or it could have been that mom or dad lost their job and they had to go live with friends or relatives. So they'll end up staying with someone else. Now the school district does recognize that, and that is the largest group of students that we identified during the school year. Just because we know that affordable housing in Savannah is a little bit of a challenge. So if you lose your home, or if you lose a job, if you're working multiple jobs, that could be a huge setback in terms of finding affordable housing. We also identify students who are living in motels. This is a tricky one. Again, it has to be because it's for economic reasons. As you all know, we live in Chatham County and we do have a large military population. So we do have to make the distinction between families who are living in motels while they're waiting on housing, as opposed to families who are living in motels because they don't have an alternative to seek affordable housing. Again, we identify students who are in emergency shelters, those who are living in their vehicles, unfortunately. And one of the other components of the definition is anyone who's had a fire, a hurricane, or a flood. Now, typically, we don't have a lot of floods in Chatham County, but as you all know, we do have hurricanes, and from time to time, we do have fires. Because those students have lost their housing, they do meet the definition of the education portion of McKinney-Vento. And then I wanted to share with you just some numbers. These are the number of students that were identified in 2019, 2018, 2019. And I wanted you to see it by grade. Most people are really shocked when they see the number of younger students that we identify. And I want you to just always keep in mind that when we talk about homelessness, that there has to be a start. And if you look at my kindergarten numbers, you'll see that a lot of them start out behind the 8 ball because they're already living in unstable living situations. And as the years progress, they are probably more likely to end up being in a homeless situation again before they complete the 12th grade. And then, of course, some of the challenges that we're facing right now with virtual learning, some students still do not have access to electronic devices. That is not necessarily something that the district is happy about. There are alternatives to that. Students are able to come in and pick up packets to complete their work and then turn it back into the teacher. But again, when you're a school district as large as we are, when you're trying to order 14,000 devices, that becomes a little bit of a challenge to make sure that you receive all of them at one time. One of the other things that I have found and parents have sort of said to me is unlimited access to Wi-Fi. Now, there have been some cellular carriers who have provided parents, especially in March, with access to Wi-Fi. However, what we have found is two things. One, it's for a limited time, and then parents have to roll over into a plan. When they're unable to pay for that plan, then they're charged, the fees actually go into collections. So now that's another barrier that they'll have. And then unlimited Wi-Fi, especially if you have multiple children. Zoom meetings, and I found this out the hard way, Zoom meetings or any sort of meetings that are virtual take up a lot of data. And if you have a limited data plan, but you have multiple children, it's probably going to cause you some issues. And then also, if you're a homeless student, noisy or crowded environments when you're participating in class. So we encourage, especially those families who are in shelters or motels where there are multiple people, to use earbuds. We've actually worked with a community partner who's provided us with earbuds that we'll be sharing with students. But those are some of the things that people don't really think about until you have 3 or 4 kids in a classroom, in a room, who are trying to listen to individual teachers give instruction. And then, of course, threats or mental health and personal safety. We've had some students as well as adults who said that they've had an increase in anxiety because of the uncertainty. I think that's something that's universal for all of us that we've experienced at some point dealing with COVID. Threats to students' personal safety. When you think about school, especially children who may be in abusive abusive homes, sometimes, the anxiety and the frustration of COVID-19, maybe your finances don't look very well. So some children may be in situations that are causing harm to their personal safety. And then they have less opportunities to interact with adults to share that information. So you're kind of in a situation where, this is going on in my home, and, maybe you were comfortable with a teacher, but you don't have access to that teacher, or you don't want to blurt it out during a Zoom meeting that, hey, this is what's going on. So students may sometimes feel a little bit of isolation. And then lastly, school stability. One of the things that McKinney-Vento prides itself on is allowing students to remain in one school for the entire school year, regardless of the number of times that they move. And so for students who are homeless, now that stability has been taken away, because now you're going to be in a place, but you don't know what that place is going to look like. You don't know if it's going to be a shelter. You don't know if it's going to be a car. You don't know if it's going to be a motel. But at least when school was in session face-to-face, you still had the opportunity to know that Ms. Brown, who's my teacher, my classroom is number 8. I'm going to always be here. The bus driver is going to remain the same. The cafeteria staff is going to remain the same. And now that's been sort of taken away, along with the interaction with friends. You can kind of interact with your friends during Zoom, but it's not something where you can kind of, and physical touch is one of the things that I know a lot of people are worried about when kids come back in school, because kids are just naturally touchy people. So they won't be able to have that, hit your friend, kind of tug on your friend, hug your friend. So those interactions, as well as just the learn school norms that children have already become accustomed to. You come in at a certain time, you do this at a certain time. All of that's been a little bit disrupted with COVID. So we're waiting to see. Hopefully we'll be going back in person one day, and all of this will be a thing of the past. But in the meantime, these are some of the things that students are experiencing. So, told you it was brief. Let me escape. So, does anyone have any questions?
No, I have a question for you, Sharon. So what are ways that we can help basically support what your work, or support, your mission, our clients, or, what can we do to help? I think the community wants to help, but, we often don't know how to help. Do you have any suggestions for us?
At this point, identification is key for me, us being able to assist families. If we don't know who you are, you don't know what the services are that we provide. And one day, I don't know when that day will come, but we'll be going back into the classroom, and we want to make sure that those students are receiving all of the services that they're eligible for. We don't want it to be a mad rush. We want to make sure they're even receiving those services now, even though they're not in school.
Right. Yeah, because hearing you talk, it's really heartbreaking to think about the one stable thing that a lot of these students have, these children have, was going to school and their teacher, and like you said, the cafeteria staff, and just that was what they could count on. And it's really heartbreaking, because I know anybody that's listening that's trying to homeschool children right now knows the challenges of doing it with a stable home, let alone without a home. So yes, it really is a very difficult thing.
Yeah.
Any other questions out there?
No, I'm just going to add, I'm going to say thank you to Sharon. I'm going to speak on behalf of the Magdalene Project. All of our children did get a device, Miss Sharon. Thank you. The kids do have access to the Wi-Fi, and they had a very good, smooth transition. For the parents at Dutchtown, we have a grandmother who has her twin granddaughters because her daughter died, and she doesn't have a computer, but she went to the school and she got school packets. So all of our children at Dutchtown are doing well, and they are logging on, and those who can't log on, they are getting the packets from the schools. So thanks.
You are very welcome. And that's one of the other things, not just with homeless students, but just with children in general. I think that a lot of parents are utilizing grandparents for childcare, which is great that you have that option. But we have to remember some grandparents are a little more seasoned than others. Mm-hmm. So they may have technology challenges. And so you've got a first grader who's trying to log on with the seasoned grandparent. Mm-hmm. And so, there are a lot of issues there. So I was glad when the district came up with the idea to provide packets, because at least students aren't left out and they're still having the opportunity to get the instruction that they need.
Yes. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's quite a challenge. I mean, I think, Sharon, your job was challenging before, and I'm glad you're getting some help, but it's still really incredible what you do, the work that you do, and I know what you provide for, the support for these kids. So, do we have any other questions for Sharon? So I guess I wrote down a few different questions I had. Is there any silver lining in this? Has there been anything positive? I know this is just so hard. Come out of this. I mean, maybe the grandparents learning how to, help the kids with the computers. I don't know.
I think just from my point of view, it's definitely taught me personally not to take advantage of a lot of the opportunities we had before. We just assumed that school was going to always be here. We assumed that you know, everything was going to be as, you know, as we thought it would be, or it has been for years. And now having to adapt, I think it's really taught me to appreciate, number one, being able to adapt on the fly without a plan, because we never thought that we would have to have a virtual plan for anything. We never even thought about virtual learning for an entire school district. But here we are. So I think it's taught all of us, hopefully, to be a little more patient with each other, and to not take advantage of some of the opportunities that we've had in the past. Once we come back to a regular learning environment, or just a regular lifestyle, that we appreciate what we had before.
Well, I think that is true. That's true for all of us. We will appreciate some things we definitely took for granted before, right before all of this happened. So any other questions that anyone might have here for Ms. Hill? Well, again, on behalf of Union Mission, our staff, our clients, certainly, and really the whole Savannah Chatham community, we want to thank you, because you're really, you're one of our heroes in the community, and we really appreciate you and everything you do. So thank you for being our first Lunch and Learn speaker, Zoom speaker. I know some of us, obviously I was challenged by Zoom today, but that's okay. We did this, and we've had some good participation. So thank you again for being here with us this morning.
You are very welcome, and I'm going to work on my lighting, because I see my lighting is there. So I'll work on that.
Yes, I understand. That's why I am where I am right now and not in my office, or we'd be the same. So
I'll work on that for the next time.
All right. Well, take care, and let us know anything that we can do as Union Mission, certainly.
Definitely will.
Any way we can help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for being here. And our next Lunch and Learn, we're going to have Ms. Cheryl Branch, who is the Executive Director at Safe Shelter. So we will hear how what is going on with them at this very vulnerable time for their clients. Take care. Thank you.